Get started, I want to challenge you to find the potato in this video. Here's a clue. Potato is me. I look like a potato in this entire video, but it's fine cause I'm still adorable. Yeah, singing, that's necessary. Anyway, Sanbonani and welcome back to New School Stitch. My name is Zete and today we are going to be doing our very first tutorial. It's gonna be exciting. I'm teaching you how to do a basic pair of pants. Difficulty level is probably like a 4 out of 10, but we're gonna put a nice cute detail on it just to make it a little bit more spicy and exciting. Yeah, so I'm gonna pass it over to voice over me now, who's gonna tell you about how we made the pants.
First things first, these are the materials that you're gonna need to make this pair of pants. So today's fun project is a basic pair of pants with an elasticated waist. This one has a cool piping detail, but you can always not include that. So the pieces that we're gonna need are 4 of these leg pieces, 1 long waist belt, and 4 like left cuff thingies, and we will put like a piece of piping in between those 2 pieces there, and I'll get into the details later, but basically these are the 3 parts that we're cutting. So to get me started, I just used a pair of pants that I already owned. I put the material on fold and then traced out the shape of the pants as a guide. And then this would give me 2 symmetrical pieces at the end. I used a sizing chart to find out the measurement of the person's waist and then just added 1/4 of that to this plus seam allowance, and then joined and darkened all the lines so that I would see what I was doing because I'm semi-blind. And then I pinned the material so that it wouldn't move around while I was cutting it, which you see me doing now. Then when I was done with that, I got these 2 pretty symmetrical leg pieces, which I then used to make 2 more of the same. So fold the material, unfold, put the material on fold, lay a 3rd leg piece on top, and then just cut it out. So next is always these straggly bits, and I don't let them go to waste, so I use them to cut out my leg cuff pieces. So what you see me doing here is folding it in half, and that height is going to be the height of my leg cuff piece, and then I just cut that out. The width of the leg cuff piece is dependent on how wide the bottom of your pants are, so it'll be the same as the bottom of your pants. So it's the same with the waistband. I find a piece of fabric that's double the height that I want my waistband to be, and then the length of the waistband, fold it in half, and then cut it out. What you see me doing here is just testing out my fabric, seeing that it goes through the machine roll, the tension is right, and that I'm able to put in that piping in a pretty way. Alright, now that all the ugly, hard parts are over, let's get to the fun part, the sewing. So lay 2 of your leg pieces right sides together, pin them along the crotch seam, and sew along that line. I used a 2.5 stitch length and a tension of 4 and a straight stitch. Then after that, I switched to a zigzag stitch because Babes doesn't have a serger, so that's what I used to finish my seams. And then I just added a zigzag stitch next to that straight stitch and then cut that out so that I would have clean edges. Before moving on to the next step, I just pressed my seam to one side.
Okay, so just a heads up sort of thing. One thing I always make sure of before I start any sewing project is to clean up the surface that I'm going to be working on. So I have pack of wet wipes that I wipe down my machine with, and my table there and the floor, and make sure everything's clean, because then if there's any kind of like debris, then it might get on your clothing. What I did not account for in this sewing project is that I just got my machine serviced last week, so it's still very oily. So what's happened now is that there's like these oil stains in the satin because I had it on the table next to the machine. And I don't know if I like touched the machine, like the, what do you call the thing, the one that taps back? So I may have touched the part in the machine that's oily and then touched the fabric. So now here I am like trying to do like damage control and stain control, because I don't want to waste fabric, but I also don't want to like give someone a dirty item of clothing. So I'm hoping that the oil washes out. I don't want like mystery stains on people's clothes. Yeah, so I've washed it and rinsed it out with soap, and now what I'm doing is I'm just gonna try to dry it out with my iron with the steam off, just to see early on. I don't want to have to like wait for it to dry, sew it together, only to find out that it's actually a no-go for me and I have to recut the whole thing. So we're just expediting the whole thing. It seems to have worked out. I don't see that stain anymore. Good as new.
Alright campers, crisis averted, so back to work. I've attached the other two leg pieces by the crotch seams, and now I'm just laying them on top of each other, pinning along the side seams. I'm going to sew, zigzag, and press the seams to one side.
So if we were making like a regular pair of pants, what we would do now is just sew this crotch seam closed and then hem the bottom. But because we're going a little fancy, what we need to do is attach this here piping and these leg cuff pieces that I was talking about earlier.
So I started off by just joining my cuff pieces at the side seams. So place them right sides together, pin, sew straight stitch, zigzag, clean up your seam, and then sew it to one side. Once that was done, I just folded the cuff piece in half and cleaned up that raw edge by zigzagging as close to the edge as I could. And so this gives me a nice piece that has a clean bottom and a zigzag raw edge. To attach the piping, you're going to need to switch from a normal zigzag foot to a zipper foot so that you can get as close to the edge of the piping as possible. Next, pin the piping to the cuff pieces by lining up the raw edges of the piping and of the cuff piece, and then sew as close to the edge of the piping as you can. First, I put in a basting stitch just to keep it in place. Once that is done, you're going to want to attach it to your leg piece. So I lined up the side seams and pinned along the raw edges of the leg piece and the cuff piece with the piping sandwiched in between, and then I sewed it all together. Again, as close to the piping as I could possibly get. And then as I'm going, I just check that everything is in place and all three layers are being sewn through. I had to watch a few tutorials on how to get this done, and I will link them in the description below. Next, we're just going to top stitch as close to the piping as we can to make sure everything lies flat and it's nice and pretty. Once that's done, we're going to line up the inner leg seams and sew them shut. We're almost at the end. We're going to attach the waistband now. What I've done is sewn it closed along the short edge to make it a continuous band. And then I'm going to take that continuous band and basically put it over my pants legs and then pin it along the raw edge, making sure to line up that back seam with the seam that's in the waistband. And then I just put pins all around to make sure that everything stays flat while I sew and that everything is in line with each other. Then I'm just gonna sew along those pins with a 1 centimeter allowance. So you can see now that the waistband is attached to the pants. Next, I just folded over the raw edge and zigzagged it down so that it would be cleaner. And now I'm gonna fold it down again. Okay, so I've ironed down the edge here, and then that one's been ironed.
Gosh, I think this whole ordeal just illustrates why 3 months.
I can sew it down, and I'm just lining it up with the other seam that's here so that it can be a nice straight line on the outside. So when I flip over my waistband and iron it, I'm just gonna leave a small channel for my elastic to go through. So I measure out the amount of elastic that I'm gonna need, cut it, attach a safety pin to it so that I have something to hold on to when I'm pushing it through that little channel that I've now created. And then you just advance the safety pin and pull down the material so that the elastic can be fed through. While you're feeding one end through, just make sure that you don't pull the entire elastic through. One side must always be out. And then once the end comes out, I just zigzagged over it multiple times to secure it. Cut off the excess fabric and then just pull it so the elastic is evenly distributed along the waistband and everything looks nice and neat. Once our elastic is evenly distributed along the waistband and everything is nice and flat, I'm just gonna sew that channel shut like I did with the rest of the waistband. And we are done, and this is how the pants turned out. I think they're absolutely gorgeous. The satin is luxurious.
Alright guys, so that is how we made the pants. Obviously I can't try them on for you because they do not belong to me. They're now with their rightful owner. Hopefully he's very happy with them. If you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to like and subscribe and follow me on Instagram. And if you follow this tutorial and make your own pair of pants, no matter what they look like, please tag me so I can see and be joyful with you guys. Yeah, so that's it, I guess. Have a great day. And like I said, great life in general, despite 2020 and its weird vibes anyway.